unfold.
Let's go back in time. The year is 1967. The place? Palo Alto, California. We're inside a wealthy, progressive high school where one history teacher accidentally created a full-blown fascist movement in just 5 days. And no, this is not fiction. This is the incredible true story of the third wave.
You know, this whole thing didn't start with some grand evil plan. It actually started with a moment of failure. A history teacher, Ron Jones, was in front of his sophomore class trying to explain the horrors of the Holocaust, and he just couldn't. He was completely stuck.
See, a student asked this question and it just hung there in the air. How could millions of regular people, teachers, doctors, their own neighbors, just stand by and let something so monstrous happen? The usual textbook answers about economics and politics, they just felt so empty. They didn't explain the feeling, the psychology of it all. So, frustrated that he couldn't find the right words, Jones made this fateful decision. He thought, okay, I'll run a little one-day experiment. The idea was to give his students a tiny taste of the appeal of fascism, to let them feel its pull for themselves. He had absolutely no idea what he was about to unleash. So the first couple of days were all about construction. Jones wasn't really teaching a lesson anymore. He was building a kind of social machine, piece by piece, and he started with the students' own bodies. On Monday, he comes in and introduces this new mandatory posture. He drills them on it over and over, feet flat, spine perfectly straight. And the rules for speaking? All answers had to start with Mr. Jones, and they had to be 3 words or less. Then, he wrote the first slogan on the board, strength through discipline. Right then and there, he stopped teaching history and started teaching control. And here's the crazy part, how fast they complied. It was shocking. Jones would run these drills, making students scramble to get back to their seats. The first try, it was chaos, took a full 30 seconds. But by the end of the class, they could do it in 5 seconds. Total silence, completely synchronized. And they weren't just obeying. You could tell they actually enjoyed the efficiency, that feeling of collective power. So Jones shows up on Tuesday, fully expecting the whole thing to be over. Instead, he walks into his classroom and finds every student sitting in perfect, silent attention, just waiting for him. He was kind of seduced by their obedience, and he decided to push it further. He wrote strength through community on the board, gave the movement a name, the third wave, and even invented a salute. This cupped hand, like a crashing wave, was now the symbol that separated us from them. By Wednesday, this thing had totally escaped the classroom. This was no longer a simulation, it was real, it was spreading like wildfire, and frankly, it was getting dangerous. And the growth was just explosive. It went from about 30 students in his one class to over 200 kids from all over the school skipping their own classes just to be a part of it. That feeling of being in an exclusive club was magnetic. Suddenly, everybody wanted in. Now, to manage all this growth, Jones brought in the tools of a police state. He issued membership cards, but, and here's the twist, he secretly put a red X on 3 of them. He told the class this created a secret police force of informants. Now, he didn't actually do it, but the threat was enough. Trust just evaporated. A quiet, marginalized student named Robert even appointed himself as Jones's personal bodyguard, and when another student dared to question the movement, she was publicly banished to the library. By Thursday, Jones knew he was losing control. He knew he had to end it. But he couldn't just walk in and say, stop. The movement had way too much momentum. He needed a grand finale. So he told them the big lie. The third wave wasn't just some class project. No, it was a real nationwide youth movement. And the very next day, a presidential candidate was going to reveal himself on live television as their national leader. The final slogan went up on the board, strength through pride. Friday, the final day. Can you picture this? Over 200 students are packed into the school auditorium for a noon rally. The doors are locked, guards are posted at the entrance. The air is just electric with this militant devotion. These weren't students anymore. They were disciples, waiting for their leader. Jones led them in one final thunderous chant. The slogans they'd been learning all week just echoed through the auditorium, this hypnotic, unified roar. They were like a single organism, totally united in their purpose, ready for their big moment. And then, silence. Jones switched on the television. 200 pairs of eyes were glued to the screen, just waiting. But there was no leader, no big announcement. There was only the gray, buzzing snow of a dead channel. That white noise just filled the room, a perfect sound for an empty idea. The students just sat there, totally stunned, confused. Was this a technical problem? Was it some kind of test of their faith? For what felt like an eternity, there was just silence. And then, finally, the spell was broken by a single, trembling voice from the crowd.
Jones turned off the TV. He finally had his answer to that question from Monday. He told them the truth, and then he played a film, footage of the Nuremberg rallies, followed by horrific images from the concentration camps. When the lights came back on, they lit up a room of weeping, ashamed teenagers who just silently dropped their armbands to the floor.
So that was 1967. The experiment was pretty much buried in shame for years. But the psychological weak spots it exposed, well, they're not history. In fact, they might be more powerful today than ever before. I mean, really think about it. Jones banished dissenters to the library. Today, our algorithms create filter bubbles that do the exact same thing, automatically. That red X informant system that made everyone paranoid, that's basically the report button we all use on each other online. The intense peer pressure to conform has a very modern name, cancel culture. The same mechanisms are still at play, they've just been supercharged by technology. The horrifying lesson from that 1 week in 1967 is that the software of fascism can run on any hardware. Even in a liberal, wealthy California high school, it shows us just how quickly we might trade our freedom for the comfort and power of being in a crowd. Which brings us all the way back to the original question, only this time, it's for you. Faced with that same pull of discipline, community, and pride, what would you have done?